on now.
You're always on.
Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I'd like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of October 12th, 2022, and welcome everyone to the City Council chambers. The City Council has been conducting our weekly council meeting in a hybrid mode. This allows us to reach members of our community who wish to participate via Zoom or those who wish to attend in person in the chambers. It's our hope to continue this format to be as accessible as possible to our community. For those who wish to participate in a future meeting via Zoom, you can find the public comment registration form on the City of Everett website under the City Council Department. You'll click on the register here to provide comment via Zoom link, and that will bring you to a form that you'll need to fill out completely. After the form is submitted, you'll receive an email confirmation with the Zoom link and the phone number to the meeting. Please note you must submit the form at least 30 minutes prior to the meeting. Forms submitted after that time will not receive the Zoom link or number to speak at that meeting, but may come to the meeting in person that night, or could request to speak at a future meeting. Please note that we do not allow comments on any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. We also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin. Here. Vice President Tui.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan. Here. Councilmember Vogely.
Here.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Fossey.
Here.
Councilmember Schwab.
Here.
President Stonecipher.
Here. I'd like to ask Vice President Tui, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please rise.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I'll ask Councilmember Zarlingo, will you please read the land acknowledgement this evening?
Indeed. This council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Stohopsh people, and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they've hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and the water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for approval of the minutes of October 5th, 2022?
Councilmember Ryan so moves.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Vice President Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Fossey.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Abstain. Good evening, Mayor Franklin.
Yeah, good evening. Welcome back, President Stonecipher. First, I wanted to acknowledge that Monday was Indigenous Peoples Day, and it was nice to celebrate that day. Last year, we did a resolution. This year, we did a proclamation. We posted it online, and of course, every council meeting, you guys do the land acknowledgement, which is good. And then I wanted to share that I had a very good meeting with Providence leadership, actually just today. Learned a little bit about the work that they're doing. I heard a small amount of good news that the ER capacity is lightening up just a little bit. Probably not enough for our dedicated staff in the ER to notice, but it is getting a little bit better. And I was pleased with what I was hearing as far as their efforts to build trust with the staff and increase staffing and just kind of the bold steps that they're taking. So I'm very hopeful that the situation is going to get better for our ER nurses soon. And I have a proclamation to read tonight for our nurses. It's Emergency Nurses Week, so bear with me while I read a proclamation. Whereas there are approximately 167,000 emergency nurses in the U.S. and approximately 150 within Everett who have expertise in caring for all emergency patients across the spectrum of the lifespan, ushering life in at birth and allowing for a dignified death. And emergency nurses are highly trained to recognize life-threatening problems and solve them on the spot, playing a vital role in treating patients in emergency situations, caring for those most in need, and saving lives on a daily basis. And ER nurses continue to stand strong no matter the challenges they face, nor the difficult situations that are brought to them. They continue to do so with dignity, loyalty, and determination, not only for themselves, but for their patients, the community, and their teams. And these characteristics provide a broad scope of practice for the delivery of critical and complex care within a limited time frame to healthcare consumers of all ages and backgrounds. ER nurses integrate critical thinking skills and knowledge of evidence-based practice in their delivery of care and decision-making. And the City of Everett respects, values, and celebrates the dedication, compassion, and selflessness that the emergency nurses possess and display every day. Now, therefore, I, Cassie Franklin, Mayor of the City of Everett, do hereby proclaim October 9th through 15th, 2022 as Emergency Nurses Week and recognize the tireless, compassionate work these individuals do with grace and dignity for the betterment of our community. And I want to do a special thank you to Councilmember Vogely, who brought this to our attention last week at the council meeting and asked for this proclamation. So thank you for bringing that up. We also received an email from Michelle as part of the Providence Nurses team. So that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Angie, do we have anyone signed up to speak for public comment this evening?
Yes, we do. We have one written comment, which is in support of item 6 from Luis Burbano, and it's for the Uniform Code Enforcement Procedures, and it's been provided to council administration and to the clerk to be part of permanent record. We have one person signed up to speak via Zoom, and we have 7 people here in the chambers to speak. So I'll first start off with Kelly on Zoom, if you want to unmute yourself and turn your camera on, and go ahead.
It says that I can't start the video because the host stopped it.
Oh, just one moment. Can you try now, Kelly?
Okay, yes.
Sorry about that, and just a reminder, you have 3 minutes to speak, and I'll remind you at 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. I am speaking today in regards to the proclamation for ER nurses provided by Mayor Franklin, which I do thank you for doing that. I did also want to note that this is the second time where you have met with Providence leadership, but you, as far as I know, have not met with any of the nurses, specifically those of us who have been providing public comment both at city and county council and have been meeting with different elected officials. So it would be wonderful if we could also get an opportunity to meet with you and give you the nursing perspective regarding the situation. To my statement, ER nurses are more than just high energy, jack of all trades, thriving in chaos kind of nurses. We are also the ones to carry the weight of the failures of hospitals, prioritizing their profits rather than prioritizing patients and the nurses caring for them. It was ER nurses who came to you all a few months ago, along with our inpatient nurses, to share with the city council and the community our concerns regarding the critical understaffing at Providence. I am thankful for the efforts of our elected officials and the Department of Health and the fire marshal to help address concerns such as the hallway beds in the emergency department and the long length of stay patients, but there is still a lot of work to be done. There are now, on average, about 100 beds closed throughout the hospital because we do not have staffing. So while we have alleviated the long length of stay patients, we are now boarding patients in the emergency department because we have empty beds throughout the hospital, which means we continue to have patients who are waiting in the lobby for sometimes over 12 hours. So we are hopeful that in the next coming months and during next year's next legislative session that we receive the support from the city council members and the mayor when we are looking for your support to pass legislation for safe staffing that protects patients in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. So we'll move on to the people that are here, and we'll start off with Mary Rollins, if she'd like to come to the podium. And so just.
I signed in last, but whatever.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
So just a reminder to state your full name, the city you reside in, and you have 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you at 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Great.
Thank you.
Hi. Mary Rollins. I'm from Everett. I'm in District 2. Good to see all of you in person for the first time in a couple years. I used to come here generally at least once a month. Tonight, I'm just speaking about the districting process. I've been part of the districting process for many years, and as part of this team that worked on getting districts in Everett and the ongoing team, the ad hoc committee, we were very excited to have a new team in place, to have a districting master, and to have something happen that changed the outcome that happened last time. What we were told was that it's too soon, that we have to wait 10 years. 10 years ago, my daughter was 11. She's graduating from college. That's what 10 years gives you. And I think having that happen for us and those of us that have been working hard on this for a long, long time was kind of a disservice. It felt rushed. It felt like this is good enough. And the city doesn't really care because nobody turned out to these meetings. But I did turn out, and I was told, well, if you speak here, you can never speak at another one. So I couldn't go to 2 districting meetings. I could only speak at one, so I did. I spoke at the one that was a hybrid like this. And somebody was quoted in the paper that one person showed up and they just didn't even ask any questions. Well, that was on purpose, because there was nobody there to hear my questions, except for the people that were in this program. So I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I didn't know I was going to go first, so thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time. I know you just have to vote yes, because that's what city charter says you do. But I'm just disappointed. 10 years is a long time to wait to see if this can be redone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next to the podium, Dwayne Dow. Please state your full name and city you reside in.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Dow. Currently reside in Marysville, Washington, born and raised here in Everett. I was actually here probably 3 years ago. It was after Emmett had made his presentation about the benefits that community transit could provide to the city of Everett, provided there was ever a merger. At that time, I had typed up a letter, and I kind of gave it to the council members at the time. I don't know if any of the current council members still have that letter. I drive a paratransit van. I've been working for the city. I'm in my 29th year here. I actually started with DART. DART is subcontracted from Community Transit, and they go by the ADA rules, which is 3/4 of a mile of a community transit bus stop. In the city of Everett, we actually give excellent service to the citizens of Everett that ride our paratransit service. And if it ever came to a vote and we don't know what would happen to paratransit. I mean, we think that the fixed route drivers would get, put over with the regular CT drivers, but the paratransit drivers would be kicked to the subcontractor drivers. And what would our passengers get? Right now, the excellent service that they get, we think that they would not get. I know there's been articles in the paper about challenging elected officials to try to ride the bus service and see how that you could, resume your daily duties and live your life if you had to follow the constraints that they have to follow. As far as us, I mean, it's, we get to know our passengers, we like our passengers consider us friends, and sometimes with a larger service, you don't necessarily always have that same connection. And I don't know, I just kind of hope that you all take this very seriously, that, the citizens of Everett appreciate having Everett Transit. And one of the recent things that they recently did was have some service to the waterfront. And if it was part of the community transit, you would all have to ask permission to have that bus service. And having Everett Transit, you can just say, we're going to have that service. And so part of the local control is something that, okay, I guess I'm done. we have more people here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, if Dawn would like to come to the podium.
My name is Dawn Nolan. I live in Everett, Washington, and I drive fixed route, and I'm an acting inspector. I also drive for the city of Everett. I'm here on behalf of my fellow drivers and their mental health. I've been contacted a lot by them of talking about this merger, and they're very worried. One is because of the training they might have to go through at community transit, which community transit has a high turnover during their training process of being let go. Our drivers will not buy cars, houses, anything expensive at this time because they're worried they're not going to have a job. I mean, this is a big deal. They're very worried. They come to me all the time asking many questions. Some I can answer, some I can't. And even myself, I am going to move in with somebody else because I'm afraid I won't be able to afford the cost of living by myself. Thank you.
Next, I have Jan. If you'd like to come to the podium.
Hi, Jan Moisenon, live in Lake Goodwin area. Been a bus driver here 43 years, 3 generations of you guys probably. I feel that our philosophy or orientation at Everett Transit with the new equipment is heading for the bottom. More Spartan-like, thin plastic seats, backpackers foam at best. Some of my fondest memories were way back when. 2 little old ladies got on when we came down, or were on Colby, and we'll be returning to having Colby service if approved. And I think they had probably both lost husbands and had found each other and were starting out on adventures. And they got onto the little 28-foot, 27-foot bus, rode like a Jeep, but they were a little pensive, and but saw how comfortable the seats were. And they got on and sat down and found out their feet would reach the floor once they sank into the seat. And I think it was probably a start of a nice adventure for those gals. I think now with these hard plastic seats we're planning on, we're kind of projecting the wrong image to the public. I think we should be more as welcoming as possible. And I know with my driving style, started out, race car, all that kind of stuff, but trail braking into corners. So, smooth with G-forces. And then I tried to get much smoother. And then probably my orientation now is to try to be gentle with the bus and to the people. And just try to take care of our citizens on our transit. It's been my orientation all along. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan.
Thanks.
Next, I have, is it Lois?
Good evening. My name is Lois Wentink, and I live in District 3. I'm speaking on behalf of Everett District's Now Ad Hoc Committee. Our mission is to support fair and equitable representation for City Council in Everett, as approved by the voters in 2018. In my role as chairperson of the Ad Hoc Committee, I've urged the Redistricting Commission to be open and transparent in all of their actions, placing special emphasis on the need to solicit public comment before drawing up a map. Instead, the Commission decided early in their process to come up with a redistricting map without doing that outreach. So with the aid of the districting master, Bob Schweitzer, a map labeled Plan A was drawn, which tweaked the original plan to comply with changes in population from the 2020 census, with no major changes overall. This is what was presented to the public meetings this summer. At the District 1 meeting at the Everett Public Library, concerns were raised about the absence of an option to divide the current District 1 into 2 districts along Broadway. Following that meeting, written comments were received by the Commission supporting an east-west option. When the Commission met, following the public meeting phase, the districting master presented 2 options, which incorporated the east-west split along Broadway. After some clarification, the only argument against a serious consideration of a Plan B option, an east-west split, was that it was too soon after the original plan was adopted to make such a drastic change. It could be considered following the 2030 census, they said. The Commission then took a unanimous vote to go with the Plan A map, which was the map that was originally presented. Now we have the original districting commission and the subsequent redistricting commission, who both chose
30
not
seconds.
to ask the public for input before drawing the maps. And we have both commissions not giving serious consideration to public comments after the maps had been drawn. Everett Districts Now is disappointed again in a process that did not maximize citizen input. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. I have, next up is Keith.
Hi there, I'm Keith Jacobson. I live in Everett, District 3. I'm here to talk again about the proposed merger between Everett Transit and Community Transit. And I want to mostly speak from the perspective of as a citizen of Everett. There was a time in my life when my family lived in an area. We had one car, and I used that car to drive to my job in Bellevue. Which meant my wife had to use Everett Transit anytime she wanted to do anything, go to the store, take our kids to a doctor's appointment, or try to somehow get me off work at that time. Since then, the point of that story is that Everett Transit provides a service to the neighborhoods of Everett, and we will lose that if we merge with Community Transit. Community Transit, we will lose any control, like was mentioned earlier. If we want to have service on the 4th of July, we as a city can just decide to do that, and it's done. We don't have to ask anybody else's permission. If we want to have service to the horticulture, we can just decide to do that, and it's done. If we give up this service to Community Transit, it's over and done with. We will have hoops we have to jump through to possibly get that service if there's anything special that we need. The citizens of Everett will pay more in terms of fare because there'll have to be a fare increase. They'll pay more in terms of sales tax because they'll have to agree to a sales tax increase. And they will have less control over what happens with our transit. And I don't know we have passengers on our buses who are worried about what's going to happen to their service should there be a merger. The final thing I want to say is there have been studies on whether or not there should be a merger. There has been
30
talking
seconds.
about whether or not there should be a merger. It's time to put it to a vote. It's time to, you've done the research. It's time to let the citizens of Everett decide and put it on the ballot and see where it goes from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. And lastly, I have Steve.
Good evening, council members, mayor. My name is Steve Ose. I live in Everett. Lived here my whole life. I brought some co-workers with me tonight. And I hope from them you got a sense of a bonding that happens between our drivers and our passengers. That doesn't happen at a lot of other transit agencies. They get lost in the shuffle. We provide these special services. We provided service when the tragedy happened up in Oso. I'm sure most of you remember that. And we were the only transit agency that went up there. And we provided transit service because we could. And we did. Those are the types of things. 4th of July was mentioned, Sorticulture was mentioned. We've done mayor's tours through Everett where other mayors around the country came here. We do all kinds of services for Everett whenever it's wanted. And guess how much approval is needed? Cassie, you can do it anytime you want. And that's the thing that we can do here. We don't have to go hat in hand to anybody because it's our transit agency. It's our citizens' transit agency. And if we ever give it up, if we ever make a decision, it's gone. If we make that decision to, let's do the merger, let's make it a regional transit agency, then people don't have to transfer because they'll have just one agency. No, you're fooling yourself. You still have to transfer. You go from this bus to that bus, it doesn't matter. That doesn't change. They'd be paying more in fares because when they go from our bus to their bus, they're going to be paying more in fares. Our big ticket items being sold in Everett, we're going to lose some of them. Some of those sales that come in as tax revenue, we'll lose some of that because our transit tax would double. That's a reality. And do we want to harm our car dealerships here in Everett? And they go out to Snohomish, or they go to Linwood, or they go someplace else? That's an advantage they have here right now.
30 seconds.
It's time to take all of those thoughts out of the process that our passengers are going through, that our drivers are going through. You're the stewards for the citizens of Everett. You're not their bosses, you're their stewards. You're taking care of their assets. Those assets include the drivers. Those assets include Everett Transit. We're one of the few cities that really owns its own transit agency. And I encourage you to do your best to do what's best for the citizens of Everett.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for the time.
President Stonecipher, that concludes all our public comments.
Thank you. We will move on to council comments and liaison reports, and we'll start with Vice President Toohey.
Thank you, President Stonecipher. Well, first I want to thank the nurses, especially that tonight we're talking about the ER nurses. Your work is tireless. It's vital, and we just can't thank you enough for your hard work. I also want to thank everybody who came out tonight to speak. It's been a while since we had several of you here. I appreciate your very thoughtful, passionate comments. I have two comments for the council. The police study final report briefing is tentatively set for November 2nd. So that's not 100% sure, but that's what they're trying to do. And we did have our Public Safety Committee meeting at 5 o'clock this afternoon, and that will be available for anyone to view by Friday online, so you can check that out. It was on parks, our park system, parks and safety. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ryan.
Good evening. Nice to see everybody today. I also want to thank folks that joined tonight for public comment and taking time out of their busy schedule to come down and be in person to share your thoughts and concerns. And I just wanted to make a quick mention, I guess not too quick, but I wanted to also talk to Emergency Nurses Week and the proclamation that was read, and I'm really so grateful for our emergency nurses at Providence and still have concerns about safe staffing levels. So I'd like to invite the CEO and CNO to provide an update at the city council meeting. After the last administration came and joined our council meeting, there has been a change in leadership. So I'd like to hear from the new leadership about their plan to address the unsafe staffing levels at the hospital and how that's also impacting the Women and Children's Pavilion. And also just to make sure that, we're fulfilling our duty as council members to ensure that the safety of our residents is being addressed and fulfilled. So, and I also wanted to mention too that I will be looking to the chair of our Government Relations Committee to incorporate some legislative priorities and asks to address the nursing staff shortage and also the conditions that are at the hospital. So I look forward to working with Councilmember Schwab to add those to our legislative priorities list. I attended the Port Gardner Neighborhood Association on Monday, and as a reminder to folks that live in Port Gardner, it meets on the second Monday of every month at 7 p.m. at Sequoia High School. And we had a presentation from folks at Depot Park, and they have some work parties going on. So if you want to get your hands dirty at Depot Park, they could use some extra hands to spread mulch. Chief Templeman joined to provide an update, a public safety update. So I appreciate the time that he took to join and hope you enjoyed meeting the community there. And also there was a mention at the meeting too, about bringing back the Neighborhood Watch program, but as it turns out, the Neighborhood Watch program has never actually gone away. So if neighborhoods are interested in putting together a group for Neighborhood Watch purposes, to reach out to the police department and they'd be happy to walk you through the process. Let's see, and then I have some comments and questions too regarding the redistricting map, but I'll save that till we get to that point on the agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogely.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all of your voices and just your presence. Thank you, Mayor, for reading the proclamation and getting that worked out. And thank you, of course, to the nurses and those who reached out to me to help get that done. So I just very much appreciate all of the work that goes into these things. To speak to the Everett Transit folks, and when Paul Kaptansky was still with us, with the city, he's not dead, he just doesn't work here anymore. When Paul Kaptansky was here, we were given 3 options to go with for Everett Transit, and essentially that was the status quo, which was really bad. Merge or upgrade, I can't remember what we called it, but it was, do better. And since that time, a lot of change has occurred. If we're not putting it on the ballot soon, I think, because I haven't heard anything about it, and that costs a lot of money. With electrification continuing down the line, we have the free youth fare, F-A-R-E, that gives our transit agency, well, any transit agency that has gone fare free for youth, a lot of money for the next 16 years. Sorry if I'm getting the numbers wrong, but it's basically correct. I don't believe that a merger is necessary. I'm not the only person that has an opinion on that. So what I'm saying is, can we end the conversations about the merger? Because we are good for the next 16 years. When thank you. When Kaptansky was here, there was no hope, it seemed like. And I think we have a whole lot of hope. So I don't know how that works and who is doing the meetings. I'm not in that scenario, but that is what I would like to see. either a quit on merger talk or I guess a vote, but I think it would be cheaper for a just essentially quitting. Okay, so there's that. Providence, new leadership, that would be awesome. I like that, because I think I can't remember their names, but the person that was here speaking to us the most at the last one, he is since gone, and I had a good vibe from him and how he was dealing with his stuff, but he's not there anymore, so I would also like to hear what's going on, more so with, the actual leadership. I'm glad you brought up also districting, and I can wait until it actually is that time to talk about it. And homelessness is a housing issue. I met a person recently. I will go quick with this story. I can't give you all the details because, well, it would just take too long. So, she was homeless like 7 years ago. She got out of it. She got up. She got a job. She got apartment. She has a dog. She is living good. It was great. This job that she had, like quit paying her for some odd reason. Yeah, okay, long story. 7 months ago, she has now lost, she still has the job, but she hasn't been paid, and she's lost her housing. She lives in her car. She's homeless again. So imagine bringing up, if you like bootstrap stories, that's a pretty good one. And now she's homeless again. So, and she was paying $600 rent. She's not gonna find that. Right now, for a 2-bedroom, it's like $1,900 a month, approximately. So just think about that when we are thinking about public safety and seeing homeless folks out there. I actually also saw a 3-year-old like running to their parents next to Lana Ty on the way here. Pretty sure they didn't have a house either. And I was like, oh my gosh, 7-lane road. That's my spiel. Thank you very much, and that's it.
Thank you. I'm going to use my prerogative as the chair to talk a little bit about the process that we're in with CTET, because my impression is that we committed to doing the full analysis. Councilmembers Arlingo and I have been engaged with the joint committee work, which is engaging with the union, and I really appreciate the union members who have come tonight to share early thoughts on that. I've been on council for 20 years and have always been very supportive of our transit agency and continue to be. And I think the analysis that we did, I was probably 5 or more years ago now, when Paul Kaftansky was here, really showed us that that we're not okay. I mean, we can't, that no matter what, I mean, we talk about being concerned about a tax increase, but the reality is we are not providing enough service to make it work for most people. I mean, people who are riding our transit agency are people who really have few other choices because we've just diminished our service over the years by so much. Even though it's great service, it doesn't come often enough for people to use it. And I think much of the complaints that we have been hearing about more traffic in neighborhoods are really driven by the fact that everybody in our community has to get in a car. The challenge, that has been placed forth for us to use our transit service, for me, is just impossible. There's no way that I could make my life work by using our service, even though I support it very much, but I want more service. And so someone mentioned the proposed merger. There is no, at this point, there's no proposed merger. We are just looking at what would be the costs and benefits of working with community transit versus doing it alone. And my understanding and my expectation is that either way, our residents and taxpayers are going to pay more. They have to, because we are not providing a level of service that allows us to grow and develop our community in a way that will make it a good place for us to live. We just simply can't add 65,000 people in this community and the jobs that we're looking at and not have public transportation that works. So the goal, for me, one of the big overriding concerns, and I'm sure that Councilmember Zerlingo can speak to this as well, but for my concern, it's how do we get the most service? How do we get the service that we need? That is, the analysis has been done. We need, headways of 10 minutes, or I'm not exactly sure the terminology, but during the times that people are peak riders are out there looking for a bus, and that's our goal, is to make sure that we have service that allows us to grow and develop over the next 30 years, because we've got a lot of growth coming our way, and we have to have a working transit service that allows us to accommodate that growth. And so while I think it's, nice that we can get buses to the 4th of July and the horticulture, I will give up all of that if it means we can get more buses on a regular service route that meets people's needs to get them to work, stores, doctor's appointments, and all the things that that people need to do in their life. So we are following the process through. It's an analysis. We're very methodically setting up the different aspects of the decision-making. And once we have that information, then we can decide as a council whether it makes sense to look at a merger, put something up forth to our residents to vote on, or whether it makes sense to bring it, to work on it in-house and just go to our taxpayers on our own and ask them for more money to build the service that we need. But either way, the service has to expand. And so there won't be fewer bus drivers in my idea. We're going to need more bus drivers probably than we can probably find at this point in the labor market. So that's the goal. But it just takes time to do all that analysis. And so I know that the represented parties have been engaged, I think, in some process, and there's plans through the joint process to make sure that we have those conversations. So you're in the process with us, but we are all, I think, working toward the same goal, which is to serve our community better and more effectively than we've been able to, just because our funding source has been diminishing. So that's all I'll say on that. I have some other comments on other things, but I'll talk about those later. We'll move on to Councilmember Zerlingo.
Thank you, President Stonecipher. I will also like to thank both the nurses and the the ET staff who've come to talk with us. This is the kind of information we need to gather. There are nuances and angles on this, some of which are included, for example, in the consolidation study, some of which are included and some of which are not. So we're happy to have those. This is a process that will be going on for some time, and there are multiple scenarios being considered. I'll also say that some of the information we've gotten in terms of the attitudes of the various entities and the drivers in the different entities have been reflected in some of the things that you've said. So we're taking that very seriously. And we do see ourselves as stewards and servants in this, looking at this very methodically and trying to look at all the angles and the trade-offs. And so I appreciate those being brought up, not only the ones that are concrete, like some of the numbers of hours of service and the tax levels, but also those in terms of the attitudes, the way we serve our community members. And a local transit service with local control certainly has a lot of important factors that way that I don't think we're anxious to get rid of. So thank you for that. With respect to staffing levels at the hospitals, I've been looking some more into that and looking for particular roadblocks there. And one discouraging thing is that we're having a hard time training and graduating enough nurses as well. One of the big problems right now in nursing and nursing instruction is that some educational entities are having a hard time getting nurse instructors because those instructors can make more money as nurses, especially as traveling nurses. So their training and professional staff has been really limited that way. And what I can say on that is that I've been trying to get as educated as I can, in part so that we can effectively lobby our state representatives for intelligent solutions, effective solutions that way, not just things that are aspirational, but things that will make that situation better. And that may mean especially more training. Anyway, I'll defer to others who know this in more detail, but I certainly won't stop looking at it on my own and agitating with our legislators and legislators to come. One other note, I guess it's health-related as well. I'm on the Board of Health, currently being consolidated or transferred to Snohomish County. That work is ongoing. But in terms of a report to the community there has been, fortunately, a continued slow decline in new cases. And that's led to the CDC loosening some of the guidelines in terms of things like masking. The new bivalent vaccines, I think as of today, are available to children as young as 5 years old, at least one of the vaccines. There are some concerns about infections in long-term care facilities. That's a thorny one and one of the original problems with this. But the main new thrust is now in terms of vaccinations. Both the new bivalent vaccine, which having gotten one 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, I guess I can tell you the effects were pretty mild compared to the earlier vaccines. So good news, at least in my case. But also an encouragement to get flu vaccines. This flu season is thought to be maybe worse than the others, partly because of the particular strain of flu, partly because we haven't had flu much in the past couple of years, so our general immunity may be down a little bit, even if our general COVID immunity is maybe up a little bit. So certainly, if you get the chance, get those vaccines now or soon. And then one last bit of at least less bad news is that while our hospitals are under great stress, the COVID cases are not a principal source of that stress as they were much earlier this year. So my own opinion, get vaccinated if you can. Be careful, wear a mask once in a while if you feel like that, especially if you're in crowded conditions, even if that isn't required. I think it can help. And do those flu vaccines as well. And hopefully we will not see this winter, this fall, the resurgence like we saw last fall. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Fosse.
Thanks. And I wanted to say thank you for everyone that came and spoke today. I always appreciate when the community comes and provides comment. To our Everett Transit and our paratransit drivers and speakers, thank you for being here and providing the comments. The care and compassion and dedication that you have for this community is very, very clear, as is the value of our Everett Transit and local control. So I was wondering if either of you could provide a little bit of clarity on your timeline of your process.
I hope I can remember.
I'm trying to remember. I think it wraps up in January.
I think January, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think it's January, but I'm not sure.
It's early next year and then
Yeah.
it goes to
And can I add that there will be an opportunity, a significant opportunity for public input in the first quarter of 2023 as well. So the joint study, maybe the committee work is done, but there's still the public input process, and then the joint committee will come back together, I believe. So, but we can get more definitive on a timeline. Provide that to council.
Thank you. As far as the nurses, thank you for the proclamation in support of Nurses Week, and thank you, Councilmember Ryan, for your request for Providence leadership to come and speak with us. Since the last time they spoke, we are still waiting on the data and information that we requested, and we still have not received that, so maybe they can provide that to us, because it's our understanding that despite some of the claims of concerns of the training, there's actually an exodus of people leaving the field, and as well as actually leaving our particular location of Providence. So having more data, and we know that they have it, would be very beneficial. So still waiting on that. We have been meeting with the nurses to hear their concerns and issues that are ongoing, and we encourage the mayor to also do so. I know that you have been meeting with Providence leadership, but the nurses have some very, very telling stories
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember
concerns.
Fosse. I actually did meet with some nurses, but I'll look forward to meeting with additional ones. Thank you.
So having nearly 100 beds closed due to low staff and the stories of people in this community in need, waiting nearly 12 hours in the emergency room. And then on top of that, the issues at the Women's and Children's Pavilion. It just really gets to me. Today we had a family health emergency, and the only thing I could think of is, God, where am I going to go? We need urgent care, and I was very hesitant to seek out Providence as the location to go to, and this is in my own community. And with the Women's Children Pavilion and the rising issues that seem to be happening there, and the stories we're hearing, I've previously said that 6 years ago, I had experienced harm that came to my family because of low staffing levels there. So I'm very much looking forward to Providence leadership coming back and speaking to us. We did have the public safety meeting. Thank you for having that. No more comments on that. I was able to attend the Puget Sound Regional Council Growth Management Policy Board, and they did go over the regional housing strategy, housing report for 2022, and a couple of just interesting stats briefly. They said from 2014 to 2022 in the Puget Sound area, the rent increased 60% and home values had increased 135%. And from 2010 to 2020, 82% of housing development ended up being outside our regional growth centers or near transit. And we've also had a loss of mobile homes. And the majority of housing stock for ownership, new ownership continues to be single-family homes. So all in all, the result being that there needs to be greater public intervention to create and preserve affordable housing. As far as other meetings, I was able to attend the Cultural Arts Commission. I believe that they were talking about the grants. I think they're open until November 19th. Yes, I think that's the correct date. Yeah. And then the Riverside neighborhood, they had the Snohomish County auditors go over the election process, which was great, and I have probably some comments with regards to Everett districts, but I'll wait until that is presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Schwab.
There's a disadvantage of going last because everyone's covered everything pretty heavy, and you guys have all been here for a while. So I just want to thank the nurses. I just want to acknowledge that it's been 8 weeks or 9 weeks since you first came here. I don't think the conditions have changed for the better. So, so I'm just speaking to you. Hang in there. These are long-term challenges, and so I just want to ask you guys to keep your energy going and representing yourself and your patients and the hospital. And we'll work and we'll have a discussion over the legislative agenda. I'm sure that the state nurses organizations will have some agenda items that I look forward to reviewing. Thank you for our bus drivers. I really appreciate them. I guess after listening to this, I guess my ask would be maybe for the mayor, I put you on the spot a little bit. Sorry, I don't like to do that. But maybe you can make it clear from management that this study is exactly what that is a study, because I think some things can be built up depending on people talk, and maybe they needed to be told, hey, look, this is just a study. Being said that, I have grave concerns about the potential merger. So at this point, I guess I'm looking to anxiously awaiting the results. At this point, I just don't know is one, but my gut tells me that's probably not the best direction to go to, but one of those things that I don't know. A lot of us here, 4 of us, are new on the council, so we weren't here when the initial decisions were made. I guess, as being a resident of Everett for quite a few years, I think at some point when the discussion began, there probably was more reason to research this idea. I'm not sure at this point if there's really as many reasons to consolidate merger, but once again, I'd sure like to have some facts and figures. Also, from a budget issue, I know this group, we are wrestling with our budget, as you guys all got your hard copy, I see, that's good. I am concerned about the different choices. Adding a sales tax and a levy rate increase to our citizens is a lot. So I'm not sure about the timing of how all those two come together. I am convinced that we're going to have to do one or the other, or maybe there's going to be some other changes in the state law, or some other funding, some other things unknown. I think at this point, I'm leaning on the priority of being that levy rate increase over any type of sales tax. So just something to consider as we go on. Once again, I don't have a lot of facts and figures to compare to. I also just want to let you know from a budget point of view, once a year, our friends at the State Auditor's Office does an annual audit, and they select various things, subjects of our city. And as you guys, I just want to remind everybody, because it's quite an honor, that the mayor and her staff, we won the Stewardship Award for our budget. Now, it's budget talk, so just keep in mind. And, that is for transparency and accountability. So it's really nice to have that. The state auditor, of course, again, is now asking for more things. So every year there's a new audit. So just for educational points. So as you review the budget, you can be, from a third party, secure that the documents are accurate and as transparent as professional standards require. So thank you very much.
President Stonecipher, just in response.
Yes.
I can only reiterate what you said around the joint study, that it is really just a study, and happy to share that repeatedly with all Everett employees. But we are simply studying this as requested by the council a few years ago, that we study this, and look forward to the results of that study and sharing it with all of you and the public. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add my thanks to the nurses who came to talk to us again tonight. As you know, my spouse is engaged at the hospital, so I'm aware of the situation there. And I don't think there's anything I can do other than to say I hear your concerns, and hopefully things will get better. Let's see. With that, we move on to administrative update. Is there an administrative update?
Just to follow up on Councilmember Schwab's comments, the budget materials are now available for council members. Our fantastic budget team delivered those a day early, which is quite a great win for us, I think. And though that proposed 2023 budget is also available online for the public to view as well at this time. So that's it.
Thank you, Susie and team.
Yeah, thank you. And City Attorney Hall, do you have anything for us this evening?
I do not have a report, but we are requesting a 15-minute executive session to discuss a litigation matter pursuant to RCW 423110I with no announcement to follow.
Thank you. We moved to our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion for the 5 consent items?
Councilmember Ryan, so moves.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Vice President Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab?
Yes.
President Stonecipher?
Yes. We have 2 proposed action items. I think I will read number 7 because it's a first reading, so I'll read it into the a record. Council Bill 2210-42, first reading. Adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled 36th Street CSO Storage and Regulator Modifications, Fund 336, Program 022, and repealing ordinance number 3812-21. The third and final reading for that item will be on October 26th. Do we have any questions or comments for the 2 proposed action items?
Just
Councilmember
one
Zerlingo.
thank you to the Public Works team for doing this background work that complies with the Department of Ecology mandates and environmental health and better safety and conditions for our residents, the kind of background work that I think allows us all otherwise to go on about our days without that kind of worry.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Move on to our action items. Item 8, Council Bill 2209-40, third and final reading. Adopt the proposed ordinance approving the appropriations of the 2022 revised City of Everett budget and amending ordinance number 3871-22. Do I hear a motion?
Councilmember Schwab will make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's see if we have any questions or comments. I'll start with Vice President Tui.
No questions or comments.
Councilmember Ryan.
No questions or comments.
Councilmember Vogely.
Susie, could you go through this entire thing and just kidding. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Zerlingo.
Yeah, the amazing thing is that she could if we asked her.
Yes.
No comments or questions from me. Thank you.
Councilmember Fosse.
No comments or questions, thank you.
Councilmember Schwab. And I have no questions or comments. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Vice President Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
President Stone Cipher.
Yes. We'll move on to the council briefing agenda. This item comes before the city council, serving as a council committee of the whole, and is likely to be scheduled at a future meeting. Item 9, adopt the 2022 redistricting plan without modification or amendment. Council action is scheduled for October 19th. And we have our Director of Engagement, Nicole Weber, here tonight. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, thank you. Okay. So I'm just going to run through a quick, brief overview of the process that we went through. And then I will introduce our districting master, Bob, who will walk through the data and the changes that actually occurred on the map. Right now, he's just getting his footing, making sure all of his materials are there, so, don't get distracted by the screen. So as you guys know, in January, you appointed your district redistricting commission, and we started meeting immediately. A few weeks following that, they appointed their 9th member, who is District 5 representative. They put together a draft map with data that Bob put together once we went through we went out to bid for a redistricting master. We ended up, this time, it was very exciting because we ended up with 4 proposals, whereas previously, I'm sure Councilmember Fosse remembers, we were actually pretty scared the last time we went through this process because we couldn't find a districting master. So this time, we have more out there in the world, so there's more choices, and that is wonderful. So we went through the process. They decided to create a draft map after reviewing a comment from the public comment from the first time we did this in 2019. They decided to maintain the same process and only accept written comment through their meetings while they developed a draft map. And then once they had a draft map and something for the community to edit, then they would go out for public comment. At that time, they did 5 in-person community meetings, 1 in each district. And then we did 1 at-large, which was also accessible via Zoom. And we took a lot of feedback from the last process about equity and inclusion. And this time we were much earlier with our flyers in Russian, English, and Spanish that we proactively went out and posted around the community. So we did take that feedback and started that process a lot sooner, which I think was good, but didn't really increase our numbers of community out there. But hopefully people saw it and read it and felt like they knew what was going on. So I think that that's fantastic. And so what you have presented today is the map that the Districting Commission, appointed by you, approved unanimously on August 9th. And with that, I'll introduce Bob, who is our redistricting master and helped everyone understand the numbers and the data and all the census information that we had to evaluate this time, and the changes that were made to A9, which was the first map that was created by Tony Fairfax first time.
Hello, folks. Bob Schweitzer, Ceramics Data Systems. I'm the redistricting master. When I was first bidding for this, one of the asks was what would I suggest for, doing to maintain the best appearance at not doing any gerrymandering, and that was minimal changes. And so with that, I was asked to present a redistricting plan that did just the bare minimum to move the lines, preserving what was already established in 2020. And this is the plan I came up with and presented to the committee. So the first area of change that I suggested was here moving these two whole precincts from the second into the first director district. The third director district grew by one precinct into this location. The second needing to grow at that point now came down into the fifth here. And lastly, the fifth came in and took over this whole precinct. We ended up with a deviation of, here we go, of less than 3% between all of the director districts. And those are the totals we came up with, which is below the margin that was previously done in the 2020 redistricting plan. I'm sorry, districting plan, because it was the first time. Questions or comments from me on the maps?
Any questions or comments? Councilmember Ryan.
So there was one map that you came up with that was then presented to the redistricting commission, and were there any tweaks that were made to the initial map that was presented?
There was no suggested changes to this. We did look at a number of, what if we changed this or what if we changed that? But the first proposal that I presented is being presented here unchanged.
Councilmember Zerlingo.
The lines are all along precinct boundaries?
Correct. I have not split a single precinct that I know of that was a request.
We did go through and look at some options that did split precincts, and then the commission decided that that wasn't in the best interest of the communities within those precincts and decided not to split precincts.
All right, thanks.
Councilmember Fosse.
Thank you. So I was on the previous districting commission. Thank you for presenting this, and I'm curious with looking, for instance, at District 1, did you take into consideration any developments, major development changes or things that would have been impacted around the time of the census being taken? I noticed that the deviation that you have is 582 on District 1, which does not, create a substantial deviation, but it was also taken at the time immediately after the Baker Heights evacuation and then evictions, and then right before the Riverview apartments were, right before they opened and staffed, and so it did change the population significantly there.
Well, as per RCW, we are required to use the most current delennial census. And so changes to the population after the delennial census is not allowed to be used in the purposes of redistricting.
I'm sure you remember, Councilmember Fosse, that your commission had a really difficult time because they knew about the riverfront development and the homes there, but we couldn't count them. We had to use census data that was given to us, even though it was 8 years old. And so this was the same thing. We couldn't make this commission could not make decisions based on what they knew about population numbers or changes, they had to make decisions based on what the census data showed in each area of the city.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes, I heard earlier that one of your priorities were the least amount of change.
Minimal change.
Is that standard for redistricting processes that you know?
Yes. One of the common questions asked when in the bidding process is, what do you do to prevent, the appearance of gerrymandering? And myself, and I'm sure other people that bid for this, the common mantra amongst the redistricting community is minimal changes. The less you change, the less you're trying to hide anything. So that is a very common thing, is minimal change.
Are you aware of a regulation that requires some sort of minimal change, or is there, could we totally redo it? Could the commission totally redo it if they wanted?
Yes.
That's uncommon, though?
It is uncommon, but in the law, it's broken out as A, as equal as possible is the new law, the language of Section A. B is contiguous, C is compactness, D is to neither favor nor disfavor a political party or racial group, but Section E is areas of common interest. And your existing districts do fall under one of the items of areas of common interest. So generally, it's perceived that the existing districts are in themselves an area of common interest, along with, as the redistricting commission looked at neighborhoods as well. So those are also areas of common interest.
Thank you very much.
And so as I understand this, deviations from ideal, if I can read that from here. So if you were to just get every single district the exact same number, is that the deviation that we're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
And these are very acceptable deviations based on the guidance of not splitting a precinct.
Mm-hmm.
If we wanted to, we could certainly get this at a much finer level, but then that might add certain levels of chaos for the county to have to manipulate the precincts to deal with the changes in geography.
Yeah, that
so
seems like a good.
We generally don't want to poke too much at Garth's people over in the county.
That makes sense to me. You wouldn't want to be splitting districts. Okay. I think unless anyone else has more questions, we are going to see if we have anybody from the public that would like to speak.
Was there more to the presentation? Oh, I thought it was halfway through. I got.
There's, in your packets, there's a lot of information on the data that is used, and it's actually really nice if you go through it, because you can also see it breaks down the census data in a really nice way, and so you can kind of see what populations are within each of your districts that you represent. And so I often use that when we do community outreach, is our redistricting data, just because it's really nice and easy to follow, so just for your own selves to have.
So Angie, I know we had someone that already spoke to this, or a couple of people already spoke to this. Do we have anyone that would like to speak at this point?
There is
at this
no
time?
one
Else?
additional on Zoom or in person.
Okay, thank you.
A question, we still have 2 more hearings?
Yes.
So the
this-
public will be able to come back and speak?
One more.
One more? Okay, just want to
We'll
make
go
that.
for vote next Wednesday.
Yeah, this is listed as an action item on next week's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I had just a couple questions that I wanted to ask. And Nicole, can you remind me, the process that we used to create the districting commission, was that outlined in the legislation that our residents voted on?
Yes, the process that we follow is outlined in the charter, but your appointment, so it just says that you as a council and then Mayor Franklin each get to appoint a representative on the commission. My process is I submit or put out an application to the community, and then I provide those applications to all of you, and then you sort through those applications and select your representative for the commission.
Right. But ultimately, that process was devised by Everett Districts Now. Is that not correct?
And our legal team, because that's how it went on the ballot, yeah.
Okay, okay. So I just want to kind of, because I think I'm worried that people watching this might be confused about what is going on here. So I was maybe the only early champion of districts, and I'm really happy with the work that we've done and happy that our community has moved to districts. So there's some Everett Districts Now people that continue to be upset. I know there was a lot of work, a ton of work, and Councilmember Fossey could probably attest to how much work it was. The first go around to just talk about this District 1 concern, which was really vested in the idea that somehow the community on the east side of Broadway and the community on the west side of Broadway didn't have common interest. And in some ways that may be true, I don't know. But I think the concern was really that the west side of the district it's been, where many council members have been elected over the years. And so I think there was a concern that the west side of the district would be overbearing over the east side of the district. And yet in the district election, of course, the council member who had represented the west side of the district before and been here for a long time was defeated by Councilmember Fossey. So for me, the whole argument about that district being an imbalance in favor of the status quo, which was the original precinct 1, basically it's precinct 1 where a lot of council members have come from, was completely negated by the fact that the election turned out that way. So while I know that some people are still wanting to litigate that question, to me, keeping this district the way it is without terribly big changes in it makes a lot of sense. And then I'll speak to the process too, because the process was essentially defined by Everett Districts Now. So we followed the process, and if it wasn't, if it didn't turn out the way that they wanted it, that is, that we're following the process. I mean, there's nothing more that we can do as council members, so otherwise we're getting involved. I mean, the whole idea is that these other people are making, the decisions so that
Outside of elected officials.
So that elected officials are not, getting their fingers involved in it. And at this point, really what we can do is just approve what the district commission put forth for us to consider. So
it's also unique in the fact that the commission has more power than a typical border commission. So I don't get to set the process for them to decide whether or not they will or will not take verbal comment from the community. That is the commission's decision. And so how they move about the process that is set forward in the charter is for them to decide, and I staff them and make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible and we follow the rules and the timelines, but those are not decisions we get to make. It's in their hands.
Well, and
Fair
then
enough.
on
Thank
that
you.
score, I guess there's probably no better example of keeping council members out of this than the current situation in Los Angeles, which has just cost them their president and one of the members. So I think that shows what kind of a pernicious effect that can be, and I'm glad we got the process we got that avoided that.
yeah, me too. Yeah, so, go ahead.
I was just,
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Councilmember Vice President Tui.
Nicole, can you talk a little bit about the outreach and what kind of, I kind of sense there wasn't a lot of response. Can you be a little specific on all that for us?
yeah, so we started hosting meetings in January, and we just wrapped up a month or so ago. We had monthly meetings, but for our community meetings, I took out flyers personally, especially to Districts 4 and 5, where we typically don't have a lot of participation from the community. We were in the Herald. I did a full Facebook boost and marketing plan. We announced it at city council meetings, and we had it on our website. And so I'm not sure, what more I could have done to help with that, short of having 15 staff members go out and distribute flyers door to door or in like more areas of the city. But that was our plan. That's what we did. And our redistricting had less participation than our districting, but I would say that that's probably common because when it's new, it's fresh, people are more excited about it. And when it's not as new as fresh, as you all know, going to community meetings, it's less exciting. So, yeah, thank you for the question.
Councilmember Ryan?
I'm really glad to hear about the translation services. I think that's great. Were the flyers and whatnot, were they sent directly to community groups or organizations who work with Russian-speaking people or Spanish-speaking people? Or were they just posted? In like
We
a
posted
coffee
them
shop?
and they were sent out in to neighborhood groups. We sent them out to our partners in Casino Road and then also at Everett Community College and WSU as well. And then I don't have the list off the top of my head, but I know I sent it to those people.
Okay. And then I was curious, like, at what point in the full deliberation process was the public solicited for input?
So we accepted written comment through the whole process, and then the public was solicited for comment for the 5 community meetings or in each district, and then the one at large is when the commission requested feedback from the community on the map that they had presented.
Do you have a sense of how many public comments that were received during the process? 'Cause I don't see it in our packet.
Yes, I can tell you that. About 15.
And of the
Give or take.
and of the public comments that were received, how were their comments incorporated into the map or taken into consideration?
Following the public comment process, the commission requested that Bob draw up a map that showed the east-west split. They evaluated it, they looked through it, they discussed it, and that's on the website if you want to watch it. And then they decided that the elongated district, the east-west split, would essentially, there was more feedback than it was just too soon to change it. The commission talked about the 7.5-mile stretch that district would be. They discussed the parks that were utilized. They talked about the numbers and if they would impact diversity, and the numbers show that the diversity would stay similar, and so that wasn't a huge point for them. And then they decided that they would go with the map that they had presented to the community, and that passed unanimously.
Great. Was there a reason that there weren't more than one maps presented, or besides the east-west split, but the initial maps that were presented, was there a reason where they weren't a few options to choose from? So with the initial districting process, I thought it was really helpful that there was like a number of maps for the public to weigh and weigh in on.
The commission didn't ask for them and didn't want to. They didn't want to. I don't know.
Okay, great. And then, let's see, I did want to mention too, because as the Council of Neighborhoods liaison, I don't want to miss this opportunity, that I think that with redistricting, there's an opportunity to reevaluate the boundaries of our neighborhoods as well. So I think, and some neighborhoods are really active, some neighborhoods are pretty dormant. So I think combining forces or whatnot, especially how the neighborhoods lie with the new districting boundaries and how that's going to be for the next 10 years, I think that'd be a great way to increase participation.
You'll be excited for the work we're doing in 2023 then, Councilmember.
Giddy up. Thanks.
Councilmember Vogely?
Can you see me over the dais? 'Cause I stank. And I just want to put a shout out to the Westmont Holly neighborhood. We still need a leader. That's all.
Council President Stoneshire, can I clarify? I misspoke. This is intended for the consent agenda next week.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Vogely?
So considering that, y'all better get all of your written stuff in, and you can come speak anyways since it's consent. We're just sliding it through because that's what we get to do.
Councilmember Broglie, I think that the thought was that because of the process and what the commission landed on, that consent was the place to land this. We can certainly move it to action if you'd prefer.
No, I don't prefer that. I know that we just have to say yes, and there was a lot of work put into it, and I didn't have a lot to say this time, but I have a lot of thoughts. They're just not formulated, so we have to say yes, and that's what we will do.
Any last questions or comments? I'm sorry. You can speak during public comment, yep.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And that happens before the consent agenda is approved. Any last questions or comments? I just want to take a moment to thank the members of the Districting Commission for their work, and Bob, thank you for your work. We will be back at this next week.
I just have one quick, so our chair wasn't able to be here tonight. She had something came up, but she wanted to make sure that we extended a thank you to Bob for all the work that he did. And she also wanted to point out that this commission worked really hard to have everyone agree. And so they spent a lot of time in discussion to make sure that everything that they did, everyone agreed on. And it was a very slow meetings with a lot of conversation, but they also wanted to point out that they were very thoughtful in this decision and appreciate all of you appointing them to these seats and to do this work because they value it. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Nicole, for all your work on this. This is good work and another thing to get off of our agenda. With that, we are now ready to move into our executive session. We have no other business on our agenda. We will move into executive session, which is expected to last 15 minutes, and we will reconvene here with no announcement.
Question, could we request to start at 8 o'clock for our 15
Yes,
minutes?
we will take a little break.
Thank you.
A bio break.
Just hold on a second.
The council is returned from the executive session, and with no further business, we are now adjourned.